got this far. Well, some years later, a bloke by the name of Michael Terry was passing through here. And he came across a tree marked by Lassiter. And what's more, he was told by the local Aboriginals that a lone white man once camped at this spot. Lassiter always maintained that the only way to recognise the sunbonnet's landmark was to approach them from the west. We can take it from that this is probably the most westerly camp that Lassiter made. He had to come to the edge of Lake Christopher, which is just over there, to get his bearings, to find out where his reef lay, because it was from the west that he came and discovered it in the first place. And he did rediscover it. He found it a third time. That's what he tells us in his diary. Once he rediscovered it, he decided to head back to civilization. And that's when all these troubles began. It was at this stage that Lassiter's luck finally ran out, and in a big way. His camels bolted with most of his supplies. Stuck in remote central Australia, on this sand dune, alone, he was desperate. He decided to head back to a cave he knew and wait for rescue. Over the weeks he was here, Lassiter obviously had to feed and water himself. Fed himself a little bit on some of those figs that are hanging out on the outside of the cave there, but he also ate some rabbits that were kicking around the place. You look at this riverbed here and you think it was nice and dry, etc., but that's not exactly the case. See, not only does the bird life show you where you can find water, but also the animal life does. That's what we've got here. This hole here has actually been scratched out by a kangaroo because they can smell the water below the surface. We'll dig a bit out and see what we get. Ah, look at that. Beautiful. What that tells us is that the water table right here is only about that far below the surface. That's why the kangaroo can smell it. You wouldn't smell it if it was a couple of yards below, but foot like that, no problem. Tastes a bit sandy though. I find it really interesting that even in winter like it is now, you can have water like this just below the surface like that. It probably hasn't rained here for yonks. But Lassiter was now in such poor condition, he was almost beyond help. Nearly blind from sandy blight, he knew he was in serious trouble. After living in this cave for almost a month, Lassiter decided there's no way he was going to get rescued. The words are all contained in his diary here, which he buried in the cave floor just before he made that one last dash for civilization. This is some of what he wrote in his diary. The skeleton of me can scarcely support my clothes. I'm an awful sight, and the flies are maddening, and the ants are something that hell cannot improve on. I want relief and have saved one cartridge, but will stick it out as long as possible. good a reef worth millions. I'd give it all for a loaf of bread. Meanwhile, Cage, the gold company, had hired a local bushman called Bob Buck to look for Lassiter. That search took Buck over 1,500 miles in 11 weeks. Lassiter left the cave in one last attempt to get to civilization. That drive in there wasn't too bad at all, not half as bad as I thought it might have been. But this is the exact spot that I've been looking for, because this is where Lassiter died. Bob Buck found his body here, even though these days it's buried back in Alice Springs. This is where it all happened. But even then, there was controversy. Buck refused to sign a stat dec to declare that this was definitely Lassiter's body. But just have a think for a minute. He'd staggered here something like 30 miles in the middle of summer, January. Got quite a bit of help from the local Aboriginals, but finally gave up here. 40 odd years later, his son Bob, who was only 5 years old, remember, at the time when his father died, came in here and found the spot, again courtesy of Aboriginal help. He put this monument here. And I guess if you're going to look around the landscape just before you die, you couldn't do much better than this. The trouble with gold is they reckon that it gets into your blood. Gold fever, they call it. Take this spot at Altunga, for instance. It was once a booming gold town. Now, you may recall that Lassiter originally claimed that a surveyor called Harding had helped him stake the reef, but that Harding had died shortly afterwards. Well, Harding lived in this area for many years, and he knew the goldfields around here pretty well, which has led one bloke to come up with an interesting theory. Right now, I'm to the east of Alice Springs, not the west where Lassiter was looking for his reef. There's a good reason for that. Over the years, there's been many people trying to find that reef, and they've all got their own pet theories and ideas and all the rest of the carry-on. I remember years ago, the people in Alice Springs used to refer to them as Lassiter's loonies. Anyway, there's one bloke I really want to have a look at. He's got his own pet theory, and his name's Bill DeCarly. Bill's theory goes like this. Harding found the reef, not Lassiter. Lassiter heard about it from Harding, but never actually knew the area, or the fact that Harding plotted the directions back to front to keep the spot secret. With Harding dead, Lassiter obviously couldn't admit his problem, or he'd never have got the financial backing he needed for his search. So could this be the spot that everyone's been looking for? To the east of Alice Springs, not the west. I don't know, it all sounds like it's done with mirrors and take away the number you first thought of to me. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is Lassiter himself and the legend that he left behind. May have left a gold reef out there too, I don't know, can't answer that one either. I suppose if there is, someone will dig it up one day and we'll lock it. Anyway, that legend is exactly what this country of ours needs. You see, we're such a young nation, we don't have too many legends. And really, when you think about it, money can't buy them either.